Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Elements of Success. I'm your host, Talha Jarad. We are talking about emotions that impact the person and his ability to achieve the maximum in this life. Remember, we are talking about success, and we are talking about the components that make the person successful and trying to identify the things that impacts the person negatively and disallows him from achieving the maximum in this life, and for that matter, achieving the maximum in the hereafter as Muslims. Now, there are certain emotions, negative emotions, that impact the person and that can influence his ability to achieve in this life. We talk now about a very powerful emotion, one that's shared by probably all creatures in this world. It is the emotion of fear. Fear is really something common between probably all beings. Even animals, they have fear. Every being has a certain kind of fear. Fear is, to understand it best, fear is really the emotion that's stimulated when you expect something bad to happen or something good to escape. Again, I mean, if you're thinking that you might lose something good, something that you have and you cherish, and you expect this to go away, you expect it to vanish, you have certain expectation that you might lose it, then you become afraid. The other side of it is that if you expect something bad to happen to you, to your family, to your job, to your life, to your close ones, when you expect something bad to happen and you keep thinking of this thing, that creates some kind of fear in your mind and your heart, and then you become afraid of what might happen, the negative thing that might happen. As we said, fear is shared between all. Now, fear is not one thing. Fear is really different things, but there is a natural fear. Let's try to identify the different kinds of fears. There is a natural fear. The natural fear is, well, you become afraid if you see a lion in the wild, or you see probably a bear in the running around and it's unleashed, or certain things that might cause you to be afraid. But these are natural things, and this is really common between all, except if it exceeds the normal behavior that most people have, and then it goes to a certain level where it becomes really not normal, abnormal, then this becomes a different story. But what we're talking about, that there are certain things that are shared by all human beings, that we all become afraid of such things. As I said, you expect everybody to be afraid when you see, for example, a lion in the wild, because you're thinking of this animal that might hurt you, harm you, or whatever. Now, this is one kind of fear. The other kind of fear that we talk about is the negative fear. That this is what we're going to explain extensively and we're going to talk about. But there is a third kind that we're quickly going to talk about, and we'll come back to it, which is actually the fear of Allah, which means that you fear Allah for what you do, you fear Allah of your sins, you fear of hellfire. So this is also another kind of fear. We're going to identify how all of these things work together, but what we mainly talking about here is the negative fear, the wrong kind of fear. Now, the fear that we're talking about is what really cause you to drag down, cause you not to do things in your life. You see, there are people that they live their life in fear. They create things in their heads and they live it, and they think it's reality, and that drains them, that takes away their energy, that makes them always not accomplished, because they lose their focus. All the time they're thinking of their fears, so they have no focus left, no energy left, no even proactivity to do things, because all of the time they are thinking of the bad thing. And that, of course, causes them to go in cycles of anxiety and tension, and they might get also to a level of stress. And why? Because they're thinking all of the time of their fears. And you remember that we said everything starts with a thought. And if you thinking all the time of a negative thing, which is you are afraid of something, then that builds in your system, and you become, all your body will react to this kind of thought, and you become negative person because of your fear. And then that will go to, as we said, to levels of anxiety and stress that might reach the person to, God forbid, something even on a physical side of his body will be impacted. This is very important to understand, because unless we understand how to deal with our fear, which is one of the negative emotions. Remember, we're talking about emotions that impact your success. And fear really impacts your success. Fear causes you not to do anything. Because, as we said before, successful people have courage. They are brave. They try things. And those who are unsuccessful, they always are afraid and live in their fear, so they never try anything, they never succeed, they never go out of their way, because they are always afraid of something. Worst part of this really is that most people, and test this yourself, most people really live in the fears that they create in their heads, and sometimes they are not realistic. Probably most of the time they are not realistic. They create certain fears in their heads, and they cherish these feelings, these fears, and as they grow up, they live with these fears completely, and they become their focus of life. So everything is interpreted with this fear, and everything is related to this fear, and everything, they look at life from this angle of fear. So they see this thing as their focal point of life, whether they realize it or not. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't even realize it, and when you expose it to them, they become very angry. Why? Because now they discover that they have wasted so much time, energy, effort on something that's not worthwhile, or they are blind sometimes towards these things. Remember what we said in the law of belief, that your mind will filter things to you, so you only see what you want, not the reality. And this is the problem. With fear, you create in your mind certain beliefs about certain things, and that becomes your reference point. And everything that happens to you in your life, it happens through this thing. For example, I'll give you an example which is very common worldwide. Muslims and non-Muslims, everybody has had an experience with people who've had this kind of this feeling, which is the conspiracy theory. There are people who live in conspiracy theory, which means they think everything has been conspired against them. There is always somebody to blame because somebody is working against them. There is always something that is planned, plotted against them. So they live their life in fear of this conspiracy. Everything that happens to them on a personal level, on a family level, and at work, at their leisure, even in the community level, even on the nationwide level, even on the global level, they live in this kind of fear, which is not realistic, not true, but they just created, and as we said, they cherished it because they lived with it so many years, and they are so attached to it, they don't want to let go. And even though it's not true, it's not realistic, even though it is just fake, it's completely fake, but they just live it. They like it. They build their life around it, so it's not easy for them to let go. And if you don't learn how to let go, you will become in a very difficult position to achieve anything. Unless you can conquer your fear, unless you can change this feeling, this negative emotion, to become fearless, to become brave, to try things, to take risks, you always gonna be where you are. You will never go out of your way to achieve anything in life. This is very important. This is very critical to understand. And taking this, as I said, moving from this status to a status of being brave, being fearless, is not easy. It's very difficult. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of energy. It requires, as I said, a change process where you start from good thought, you start changing your life till you get out of this vicious cycle that you created in your mind and in your head. This is about this conspiracy theory and how people have been living their life really around it, and how this fear impacts their life and paralyze their life, paralyze their achievement, paralyze their ability to be able to do anything. Some people even live in fear of the future. They just fear the future for no reason. They are so concerned, so anxious, so stressed out about something that has never happened yet. So remember, we said in the law of expectation, whatever you expect, what you confidently expect for yourself will come reality, will come true. So because they are afraid of it all the time, it does happen and it does occur to them, and then they go again in the cycle, again and again and again. They go to what we call the downward spiral, and they just keep minimizing this themselves and decreasing themselves and putting down themselves. Why? It started with their fear. They were never at a position, or they never learned how to deal with their fear. They never learned how to change this feeling, negative emotion, and hence they were dragged by it, and they were completely pulled down by it, and that, of course, impacted their entire life. Whether it was something in the past that happened to them, or just being afraid of the future, or sometimes people are afraid of the change. Whether this change, even sometimes if they don't even evaluate the change, they are afraid of any kind of change. Any kind of change makes them nervous, makes them unstable. And again, it's because those people have not learned how to conquer their feeling. They have not had the ability to learn the impact of this on their life. And unless they can get out of it, unless they can learn how to change their thought process, they change the way they look at things, they change their perspective of life, and most importantly, they change their way of dealing with Allah and dealing with the universal laws, it becomes very difficult for them to achieve anything in life. Fear is really very dangerous. Fear destroys the person. Fear destroys the ability of the person to achieve anything in life. And nobody has achieved anything in life with the negative feeling of fear. Now, as we said, there is a good side of fear, but what we talk about, this fear that you come to people and say, why don't you try this? Oh, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't do it. I'm not cut for this thing. I'm not good at these things. They are just afraid and afraid and afraid. They never get out of it. They never even try sometimes to get out of it. So they get caught in this emotion, and as I said, it keeps pulling them down and down and down until they become completely disabled and not able to even move out of it. We will continue talking about fear next time. Thank you for watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.